So there's one thing that people don't really talk about or educate you about or teach you about when you are running your own business. So in this video, I'm going to cover that topic, because if you don't manage this area well, then it could mean the end of your business. If you're new to my channel, my name's Shorful, and on this channel, we talk about everything data. If you're a budding data analyst or a seasoned pro or someone who shares an interest in data, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. Also ring the bell icon so you don't miss any of the helpful tips and advice that I have to offer. Now, this silent killer of businesses is cash flow. Okay, so when you are running a business, especially a data analytics company, a service type business like I do, one of the things that you don't really think about when you're planning the business is cash flow. Now, you think about, what is my proposition, what's my pricing, how do I do marketing, what kind of website, even what name should I choose, my team, my co-founders. There's lots of other things that you are thinking about, but you don't really think about cash flow. And the reason I want to discuss cash flow in this business, because I think that unless you manage cash flow really well, you find that that's one of the reasons why your business won't survive. So why is cash flow important? Well, let's think about how as a business, as a startup or a service type business, how you get paid. So typically, for example, my company, what we do is we will deliver a service for our customers, and we might bill them or send an invoice to them at the end of the project or at the end of the month, an agreed period. Okay, so let's say we send them an invoice at the end of the month. So let's say it's January, we've delivered the project, and on the 1st of February, we send them an invoice for January's work. Now, typically clients will have 30 days to pay that invoice. Okay, so we have to wait 30 days. So we're now going to be paid at the end of February, beginning of March. Now you think about it, if I've hired people or if I've got people in my company that I need to pay salary, I've got to pay January salary and I've got to pay February salary. And then I've also got expenses. So for example, we have an office, so we've got to pay for the office. We've got subscriptions that we've got to pay for. There are certain things, other things that we need to pay for, like for example, the accountant, insurance. So I've got to cover January and February's costs before I get paid in March. And I need to cover that from somewhere. So that's what's called cash flow. So even though you might be invoicing and you might make a lot of profit on that invoice, unless the money's in your bank, you've still got to survive. Okay. Now, in the early days, you might want to cover that with personal savings, or you might get a loan from friends or family, or even from the bank. Okay. I wouldn't advise getting a commercial loan if you're doing a startup, because it can really sort of restrict what you can do. But you might get loans from friends or family, or you might have saved. So for example, if you decide you're going to start a new a digital analytic or a data analytics agency or consultancy, then what you might decide is, you know what, from your job, I'm going to save a bit of money and then start. So let's say you want to cover 3-4 months. So typically when we started, we try to cover at least 3 months of costs. So my partner and I have covered 3 months of costs. Now what happens is that this is the best case scenario, is that clients pay after 30 days. Some clients are really good. They pay like within 2 weeks. But some clients don't pay in 30 days. So what do you do then? So let's say you've got a nice rhythm going. You've covered the first 2 months. You get paid in March. And then you use March's money to pay yourself back, but also potentially pay for March's costs, April's costs. So you don't take money out. You don't take any profit out. And then you get paid in April. Use April's costs to cover May, and then so forth. So you're running like that. But let's say you come to a period where some of your clients decide that they're not going to pay you, or they just don't pay you after 30 days. Let's say they decide they're going to pay you after 60 days for whatever reason. Like sometimes it's genuine that they have cash flow problems on their side, so therefore they can't pay your invoice. Other times it doesn't match their payroll, their invoice run system. So or invoice run. So for example, they may pay on a certain day and you've missed that cutoff date when you submitted the invoice, so they're going to actually pay you on the next run, which then happens to be, let's say, 60 days later rather than 30 days later. Okay, so now what you end up with a situation is that let's say you got paid for April, you did March's work and you got paid in April, but then April's work, you don't get paid until June. Now, unless you have enough cash, you've got to cover May. Yeah, you've got to cover April, May with March's money. Okay, so that's why cash flow is important. So you've got to think as a founder, as an owner of a company, how do you manage that? And it's always good to look at your accounting software where you're looking at that and try and forecast what would happen in certain scenarios. So what I do is actually, obviously, being an analytic, having an analytical background, I forecast things in Excel. So I'm able to see what I've got to pay out. So for example, even things like VAT. So when you invoice customers, you might think that's the total amount you're getting, but you're not. You've added VAT on that. So you've got to pay the VAT to HMRC. Okay, so you've got to think about, take away tax, even salaries. So even though you're paying someone X, salaries are more than X because you've got to pay employers' national insurance, you've got to pay pension, so you've got to make sure that you've factored all of this cost in, because otherwise you might find that you run out of money. So if you do run out of money, if it's your company, you're fine. You may not want to take salary for a month or two because it's your company. But if you've hired people, you've got to pay their salaries. Now, unless they're really, really understanding, there's no reason why they should work for you, because if you haven't paid someone in the month they work, they've got mortgage to pay, they've got bills to pay, childcare costs potentially to pay. So they might think, well, actually, if you're not going to pay my salary, I've got to get a job somewhere else, and they'll leave you. Okay, so therefore you've gone back in your company. So the reason I call it a silent killer is because no one thinks about this thing. No one thinks that the amount of money they have in the bank, the cash flow that they have, is what they're going to use to run the business. Okay, because people are always thinking, can I get clients? Obviously you need clients, but can I get clients? Have I got my marketing right? Have I got the right team? Have I got the right skills? All those kind of things are the things that people are considering, but they're not really thinking about cash flow. So if you are thinking about starting a data analytics agency or consultancy, then one of the things that you should really consider is how you're going to manage cash flow, not just in the beginning, but let's say further down the line where you might build, you've got a good rhythm going and you've built a big team and your payroll is quite large and your expense base is quite large. What if clients didn't pay for a couple of months? How would you manage that? What's your strategy for bridging that gap between invoices being paid and you having to cover all your expenses? Now, like I said, I use Excel to forecast it. You can actually use your accounting software as well to look at your cash flow and P&L balance. But I would suggest that you make sure you've planned this. If you are an analyst, you should be able to see when you get invoices, and then scenario plan. What if you didn't get invoices in March, April, or whatever? What would happen to your cash flow? What's your base level expenses? What could you cut back on? What couldn't you cut back on? What could you defer? So there may be some costs that you can defer. So for example, there are some invoices that we pay that are annual, for example, but we decide to pay them monthly to draw them down. But we might speak to the supplier and say, look, we owe you this at the end of the month. Can I delay a couple of payments? And then or end of the year, sorry, can we delay a couple of monthly payments? And then when I get my invoices paid, I'll pay 3 months together on July or something. Okay. And you find that certain suppliers or people that you buy services from are happy with that. The other thing is just to make sure that things like insurance, okay, unless you've got a monthly payment, you might have an annual payment where you decide to go for an annual payment. If they fall in a period where you've got no cash, then that's going to really affect your cash flow and the balance you have in your bank. Okay, so just make sure you factor all of those things in and map it out and look at worst case scenario. What if 20% of your clients didn't pay their invoice on time? What if 50% didn't pay their invoice on time? What if 70% didn't pay their invoice on time? Could you cover the cost, and how many months could you cover the cost? That's called sort of the runway. How much runway do you have? Okay, so typically, like I said, we try and keep a 3-month runway. So if none of our clients paid, we have enough money in the bank to cover 3 months. That's what you should be aiming for, because that gives you enough time to chase clients and get what you want. And like I said, I've been fortunate that I had savings to cover those 3 months in the beginning. So therefore, with my partner and I were able to cover those costs in the beginning. But you need to have a strategy for doing that. The final thing I say about cash flow is don't overcommit to things. So don't go recruiting people that you don't need, or committing to subscriptions or services that you don't need either, because unless you're very sure that the cash is going to come in, you still got to pay those services. So what we do is we work with, for example, when we do subscriptions to our Google workspace, to things like Jira, things like our time management system, we have a monthly payment, so I can ramp up and down. So if, for example, in a month, I need to go down, I can lower the number of users on a particular system, and that will lower the monthly cost. Okay, it doesn't save you much, but it gives you that flexibility. And if you've got quite a few systems like we have, subscription to quite a few systems like we have, it means that we can save a bit by just ramping down a month where it's a bit quieter. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you have any comments about cash flow, you'd like to know more about it, leave a comment in the comment sections below. I'm always checking the comments, and if I'll either respond in the comment section, or if I think the question's really good, I might create a video about it. If you enjoyed the video, please do like it. Please subscribe to my channel and ring the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos that I'm publishing. Thank you.